Greetings, friends. Welcome to a special Saturday episode of Countdown to His Coming. Of course, today is a very special day in the United States of America. And friend, it's not just the President's birthday. It is, secondly, Flag Day, a day in which we honor the flag of the United States of America, and a day in which we remember its rich history. But it's also today in 2025, the 250th anniversary of the United States Army. And behind me, there's a good deal of memorabilia that hangs on the wall here in our bedroom. You'll notice there are two flags. The one on the wall that was given at my dad's funeral because he served in the Army in World War II. The one directly behind me was given at the funeral of my Uncle Howard Chafin, who also fought in World War II, spent the last few months of the conflict in a German POW camp. He was captured at the Battle of the Bulge. And in those cases are all kinds of things that help us to remember them. The medals, the pictures, some of the things brought back from the war front. Over here in this case, there's one of those New Testaments that fit in my dad's pocket that, like many of those given out those days, was metal on the front of it. And of course, there were many stories about some of the guys who had that testament in their pocket, and being over their heart, it caught a bullet and saved their lives. But it's not about some of the wonderful stories that come back from that. It's really about honoring the service of those who've given themselves generation after generation to be the boots on the ground fighting for our freedoms. In our family, that's a rich history that goes back all the way to the Revolutionary War. And although I'm just talking about my dad and one uncle here, most of my uncles on both the Chafin side, my mom's side of the family, and the Bailey side, my dad's side, did fight for the United States in one branch of the service or the other. They fought in just about every conflict we've been involved in. So we've got that memory, of course, of all the stories that Dad passed on about World War II, but then also in Korea and in Vietnam, it was my older cousins. And then when I graduated high school in 1974, it seems like it was all over. I was discussing this with a classmate the other day where we could remember hardly anyone from our class thought about joining the military in those days, because it seems like, hey, we're out of Nam now and there's nothing to do and we don't have a war front anywhere, and most of us went off in other career directions. But then yet again, we've noticed that the needs of our nation have popped up from time to time, and I'm proud to be a part of a family that's always stepped up and served. Even this year, as we have grandson Micah finishing the last touches of his enlistment into the United States Air Force. So with all that having been said, here we are at this 250th anniversary of the United States Army, giving thanks for how they have protected us through the years, but then also thinking about how fighting and how military involvement is changing right before our eyes. And what we're watching take place in the world today, from the battle going on between Israel and Iran, biblical Persia, and the Ukraine-Russia war, and so many other conflicts happening around the world, it's almost like reading the book of Revelation. As the Apostle John, as a first century man who'd never even seen gunpowder, was given the task of putting down in his own vocabulary the things he was seeing take place in the world just before Jesus Christ returned to establish his kingdom, to come and straighten out, shall we say, the mess that man has made in his sinful life of this wonderful planet God's given us. And some of those descriptions that John gave didn't seem to make sense in the past, but now it seems like they do. And one of the key elements we're noticing is now, with artificial intelligence and these new robotics that are being involved in warfare all around the world, that it'll never take on the picture that it had in years past of the soldiers on the battlefield by the hundreds of thousands and even millions marching at each other and fighting, sometimes in relentless wars. Now it seems like we're going to be facing massive drone strikes, as the air will be filled with something that will sound maybe a lot like the locusts John saw in the book of Revelation. that seem to be coming from everywhere, and we don't even know how they infiltrated the country, and yet they can be released from planes flying overhead. They can be released from boxcars, from 18-wheelers, from all kinds of stealth ways that you can sneak thousands and thousands of drones into a country. And just like what happened in Russia, they discovered that some of their greatest air capabilities, their tactical nuclear air superiority, could be struck up to maybe about 25% of its capacity in one drone attack. Really? One of the first responses that this particular war we're dealing with now, the one that's going on between Israel and Iran, one of the first things we noticed was Israel used drones to get into some deep places inside Persia, inside Iran, to help take out that nuclear threat that was being posed to it. And when the attacks came back from Iran, and by the way, this isn't the first time, remember in those attacks against Israel in these past months, they've already sent hundreds of drones at Israel. Today was no different. Drones attacking Israel and ballistic missiles coming overhead, and their Iron Dome did not protect them from all of them. Already strikes have happened inside the nation of Israel. Is this the future of warfare? I think if we read the scriptures, we'll say that it most certainly is. And the scary part of this is if artificial intelligence, something that looks a lot like part of Revelation 13, takes over this kind of warfare, it will systematically, with no conscience whatsoever, begin to eliminate the greatest threats. Who will those threats be? And whose values will drive those robotic warfare machines to determine who dies and who doesn't? Well, these are scary times, my friends. And in these scary times, we're reminded that we can trust God. We can lift up our heads. Our redemption draws nigh. And these next few years are going to show us exactly why it is important for Jesus Christ to fulfill his promise and return. You know, Matthew 24:22 says it very simply. Jesus said, unless those days, speaking of the last days, unless those days were shortened, there would no flesh be saved alive. Yes, we have just found ourselves staring in the face of the destruction of humanity, and in so many different ways that we have created that it boggles the mind. But yet, friends, even if you've watched one of those videos like the one that showed how artificial intelligence could implant a virus that it could trigger inside of human beings and wipe us all out at once, or some of the other scenarios that are so amazing. Listen, friend, it's really important to recognize that when things look like they are out of control, as they may right now, God is really still in control. Jesus said, when you see these things happening, don't fret, don't worry, because I love you. I still am keeping my promises, and I'll keep every one of them right until the end. So with that having been said, friends, today, if you know someone that has served in the United States Army, go give them a hug and say thank you today. If you've got relatives that you know have served before, and perhaps you know where their graves lie, if you're able to get to them, I can't even get to, I'm so far away from it, I can't get to my own dad's grave today, but I tell you what, I'd be thinking about going by and planting a flag today just to say thank you. Thank you for serving. Thank you for being willing to put your body between the people of our country and the enemy, to go out and fight for freedom and to stand up for what is right. Now, friends, we know that sometimes soldiers are asked to go into battle and they don't even know for certain if the cause is worthy or not. But you know what? When we look at those who've given themselves over and over again for our country, why are we able to stand here today and do what I'm doing? I'm able to do this because of the freedom we share, the freedom of speech and other freedoms that we cherish so much. And there's an army that has fought for us for 250 years to ensure those freedoms. Thank God for them, and thank someone you know that is served with them. especially those who are serving even today. And as we give thanks for them, we also recognize that there will be reasons to fight for what is right and what is true and what is necessary even until Jesus comes. Even today, we see the infiltration into our own nation. That means we've got folks fighting for people outside this nation, fighting in the name of terrorists and fighting against our own country, even demonstrating in many of our cities today. Friends, it's not a simple issue, but I tell you what, it is an issue that you and I need to be keeping at the forefront, thinking about, praying about, and speaking up about when we can be supportive of the folks that are standing up for us. In the meantime, I want you to have a great day in the Lord, remembering that tomorrow is Father's Day. And many of those folks that have served in the military are also fathers, as I am a child of the baby boom. I'm one of those baby boomers because a lot of those guys that came back from World War II were ready now to build a family, and that's exactly what they did. And that's why folks like me are around to thank God for them today. You have a great Father's Day tomorrow. Worship somewhere with God's people, and I'll see you again on Monday when we wake up in God's Word. God bless you.